The Crocodile Zoo on the Danish island of Falster has it all. Around 150 crocodiles of every conceivable species live here. And I'm not just saying that, I mean that quite literally. All known living crocodile species are kept here. And I don't just mean the true crocodiles, but every single freaking species. But even apart from the crocodiles that give it its name, the zoo is also good for a few surprises, and so today I can definitely introduce you to another super exciting facility. But before that, I would like to know, if you were to open your own zoo, which animals are particularly close to your heart? Let me know in the comments. For René Hilger, it was definitely crocodiles. And so he opened Krokodille Zoo originally in 2000. In the middle of nowhere in the countryside, it still seems very unassuming at first glance, but when you arrive at the car park, you soon realize that you can expect more than just a few crocodiles here. And in the entrance area, which is also a small zoo shop, the first terrariums await us. Although the one for the bearded dragon seems a little small for my taste. There is also a view of a very exciting shared enclosure where you can discover sailfin lizards among others, but the lively Midas tamarins probably catch the eye a little more. And then you enter the first tropical hall, where you are immediately struck by the high humidity. This is a comfortable temperature for crocodiles, not so much for humans. Plus, you first walk above the crocodiles on a kind of elevated walkway just below the roof. So yeah, that's where the heat really hits you. Accordingly, you start by looking down on the first crocodiles, which is not quite my favorite perspective, but you should still be able to get a pretty good look at most of the crocodiles here, even if they can hide quite well in their enclosures. In general, as far as I can tell, the individual enclosures have been cleverly designed with a great deal of expertise, even if I do have the impression that at least some of the larger crocodiles could do with a little more space here. This first area already clearly shows the diversity of crocodile species. Freshwater crocodiles, American alligators, dwarf crocodiles and black caimans live here among others. And all of these species are actually labeled in English and German as well. The sizable Nile crocodile Sobek is of course particularly impressive. With a body length of 5 meters and a weight of 600 kilograms, it is said to be the largest crocodile in the whole of Europe. Opposite, we are watched by an alligator snapping turtle, then we round the corner to the back of the shared enclosure, which we could already see into from the entrance area. From here, however, I got a better view of another resident, the rhinoceros iguana. The Asian water monitor also showed itself very well and lives here in an enclosure that I really like because of the three-dimensional structure and furnishings. Now we are heading into a separated corridor, because this is where cotton-top tamarins roam around freely. And even though keeping marmosets in this way is not necessarily unusual, being able to experience the lively little monkeys up close was definitely a highlight for me. Below the climbing monkeys you can of course also see other crocodile enclosures. To be more precise, Chinese alligators live here, and you can also discover northern caiman lizards in a very nice large terrarium. For the last area of the first tropical hall, we now leave the raised walkways so that we can now look through glass panes between artificial rock walls into the enclosures, which, in my opinion at least, gives us a much better perspective. Otherwise, these enclosures here are also very similar in design, and this gives me the opportunity to say once again in summary that I think it's very clever how the space is used here. The pools for the crocodiles continue under the land areas so that the crocodiles also have space to retreat. Nevertheless, the slender-snouted crocodiles were the only species that I didn't get to see. The others, such as the spectacled caimans, showed themselves very well, and this American crocodile seemed to really want to show off its pointed snout. As you would expect from crocodiles, most of them were just very relaxed, like this Moralets crocodile. There are also New Guinea crocodiles, West African crocodiles, Siamese crocodiles, and Cuban crocodiles. Enough species that I'm afraid I've got something wrong here, but at least with these false gharials, I'm quite sure they are definitely unmistakable. Everything here is beautifully laid out, and the dense vegetation in particular creates a great atmosphere. Incidentally, there are also a few free-flying birds in this last area, and yet I was glad to get back out into the fresh air, past some of the last terrariums, out of the humidity of the hall. And here a surprise awaited us straight away in the form of Denmark's only clouded leopards. They have been living here since 2014 in beautifully designed enclosures, and I was particularly impressed by the many climbing structures in the largest enclosure. After all, clouded leopards are excellent climbers and love to hang out at high spots, and this one demonstrated that perfectly by not even bothering to come down for the feeding. There are quite a few commented show feedings or animal presentations here at Krokodille Zoo, and that's a nice extra, especially for such a small zoo, because it ensures that you can still experience a lot here. And you will definitely still get to see that in this video. The turtles, on the other hand, are certainly rather unspectacular, but they still fit in very nicely. There are also some outdoor enclosures for crocodiles, although during our visit these were occupied exclusively by young crocodiles. This of course also shows that there is a lot of breeding success. They have successfully bred 18 of the crocodile species kept here, something no other facility in the world has managed to do so yet. In addition to the numerous mini crocodiles, there is also an aviary with macaques and parakeets, as well as this very well designed enclosure for tyras, which have plenty of climbing structures and a lot of space to scurry around. The tyras have lived here since 2020, and just like the clouded leopards, you won't find them anywhere else in Denmark. And that also applies to the cougars, which were definitely one of the highlights of our visit. Not only did the largest of all small cats show themselves very well anyway, we also happened to be there right at feeding time, and it was pretty cool to see how the keepers first secured the animals so they could safely enter the enclosure and hang up fresh piglets. And so we were able to get a lot of great shots of the animals, although I should warn you about my buddy Sven's slow motion shots, because if you don't want to see a piglet's head being ripped off, you should look away for the next 10 seconds. I warned you, it's happening now, and I'll let you know when it's over. I personally think it's a really great shot, but of course I can understand that not everyone might want to see it, but now you can look again. And with that, I can tell you that I also really like the cougars' enclosures. Once again, they are well thought out, structured and laid out. At the back, there are two slightly smaller areas that can be separated off, and the pumas can then switch to the largest enclosure via a connection over the visitors' heads. There is a large platform in the center, which also provides shade on hot days. The cougars can then retreat underneath it, and because all the enclosures are covered with netting, there are nice climbing opportunities everywhere and platforms where the cougars can just lie down and rest. And on the other hand, as a visitor, you also have a very nice view of the enclosure and the cougars through the glass panes. Overall, it is simply a well-designed enclosure, which you can tell is only from 2019. The entire outdoor area looks very modern and also very stringently designed, if only because everything was built with wood. One disadvantage, however, is that this is an old farm area, so there are no old trees or anything like that. And I think a gardener could get a lot more out of the whole area. And above all, they should probably start planting a few more trees. Finally, we are now heading into the most modern part of the zoo, as the second tropical hall was only opened in 2023. As you might have guessed, the 1000 square meter tropical hall is primarily intended to provide even more space for crocodiles. And the enclosures here are also very similar in design to those in the old tropical hall, just a bit larger. Unfortunately, that also means you can once again only view the animals from above. That actually bothered me the most in the case of the armadillos, because depending where the crocodiles are, the larger size of the enclosures here at least gives you a slightly angled perspective. But with the 6 banded armadillos, you're really just looking almost straight down at them, which I found particularly frustrating. And yet, of course, I was very happy to see this youngster here. It was very cute. Apart from the crocodiles, there are also some really huge reticulated pythons and crocodile monitors living here, which I was delighted to see so active. You don't get to see them very often. In Germany, for example, you only see them in Berlin and Cologne. Yet the biggest rarity here is, of course, a crocodile species, as the Orinoco crocodiles cannot be seen anywhere else in Europe. This South American crocodile species is highly endangered, and at the same time we still don't know that much about it. Just look at Wikipedia and you can count how often you will find the word probably, because there is still a lot of speculation and not everything has been scientifically proven. The hall is also home to marsh crocodiles, saltwater crocodiles, gharials, and some of the species that we had already seen in the first hall. The reason why I was able to see many of the crocodiles much more actively here was that it was feeding time, and I think there are few animals where feeding changes the animal experience so much, because normally you just see crocodiles like this, whereas with a bit of luck you can even see something like this during feeding. And so perhaps now it's truly clear what makes Falster Crocodile Zoo so special. I mean, crocodile fans will definitely get their money's worth here. For you guys, this is probably one of the best facilities in the whole world. But the zoo is impressive in other ways as well. For one thing, because it's a very modern facility, and above all, the animal husbandry is largely convincing. Plus, there are some really fascinating species to see beyond just the crocodiles. But also because through feeding demonstrations and animal presentations, they've managed to create real added value. So despite the park's compact size, this makes for a truly great experience. And so I can really only recommend a trip to the Crocodile Zoo on Falster if you're on Lolland or Falster or in the area in general, or maybe even on holiday in the Knuthenburg Safari Park. A trip here is definitely worthwhile. Let me know what your impressions are in the comments. Have you got the urge to visit the park, or if you have been there already, how did you like it? Of course, I'd also appreciate a thumbs up, and if you haven't already done so, click on subscribe and you won't miss any more zoo videos in the future. I also still have to introduce the aforementioned Knuthenburg Safari Park in more detail. I mean, it made it to 2nd place in my top favorite zoos in Europe, so that's definitely a must. This probably won't be the next video, but I'm sure it will be soon. Oh, and by the way, make sure to follow me on Instagram as well. I'll soon be traveling again, first through the Netherlands, and will share a few impressions in the stories. And of course, last but not least, let me know which other parks I should definitely visit in Denmark. But for now, thanks for watching, see you soon, hi and farewell, or as we say in Germany, Schnie, Schna, Schnappi, 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 Schnapp. Oh Gott.